Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Love Restored. I am your favorite host, Marshaun Olaniyan, and this is Love Restored. You are listening to Love Restored on KCCR Brownstone Cityscapes Radio. So thank you and welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking about establishing healthy boundaries. Now, if you remember, last week we discussed how important it is and the power that you gain from understanding yourself by getting to know yourself before you get into or start another relationship. And that is very important in order to establish as well as create and even maintain a healthy relationship with another person. Now, I specifically talk about romantic relationships, but rest assured that you can take this information into all of your relationships, especially the relationships that matter to you. So this is not only going to be your partner or spouse slash significant other. This will also be your friendships. This will also be your familial relationships, including but not limited to your child or children. This will also even include strangers as well as people that pass by or fair weather people that come into your life. It's just a matter of understanding yourself by getting to know you, the power that you have. And if you have not watched that episode or listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you go back and to do so. Again, today we are talking about boundaries, what they are, why we need them, how to establish healthy ones. So I am specifically going to be talking about romantic relationships. But again, don't forget that you can apply what you learn here to all the relationships that you have within your life. So before we get started on boundaries, let's talk about why I decided to start Love Restored and this segment here on KCCR Brownstone. And it's because just like many of you out there, I bumped my head a time or a million trying to figure out how to be a better person, how to show up in a loving relationship, how to attract the best mate for me, and how not to get caught up in the roller coaster of the ups and downs that come about during the dating stages, but then also using my God-given discernment and being able to repel those that are not for me, that don't mean me any good, that are not on my level emotionally, right? And being able to attract more of the things that I actually want by becoming that person, by showing up in that energy, by exuding all of that out there to the world so I can attract the mate that is for me. And so again, I bumped my head a time or a million, and I wanted to come here and share my thoughts as well as my experiences, as well as theory, the things that I read in the book that I believe will be really helpful if you apply it to your life. Now, I am pretty much a practitioner anyway. I apply, I'll say at least 90, I ain't gonna say 100%, but at least 90% of the things that I learn specifically and the things that I talk about as far as books. And I have noticed a difference in the way that my confidence is and the way that I'm showing up in my life. My self-esteem is at an all-time high. Like you can't tell me nothing. And I really do make it a point to speak soft to myself, but also give myself grace and mercy and understand that this is the road that I'm on, not trying to rush anything with anyone, just being Marshaun. And I want you to take exactly what you learn here and apply it to your own life, because taking action is the only way that you get the results and create the life that you want to be proud to be a part of. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation of boundaries. So first of all, let's talk about what boundaries are. So boundaries are the guidelines, the rules, or the limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them, and how you will respond when someone passes those limits. Like you cannot create the boundary and then not have a plan of action if somebody crosses those or passes those boundaries, right? The boundaries are essential for maintaining one's mental, emotional, and physical well being. So that is what boundaries are. Now, why do we need boundaries? Why do we need boundaries in our relationships? Again, I'm specifically talking about our romantic relationships, but this can be applied across the board of relationships. So the first thing is self-protection. We have to be able to protect ourselves. So boundaries protect our emotional and mental health by ensuring that others do not take advantage of us or treat us in ways that make us, you, uncomfortable. So they protect you, right? The second thing is that it brings about respect and understanding between the two of you. Boundaries promote mutual respect and understanding by making it very clear what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. The third thing that boundaries do within every relationship is that it creates healthy interactions. Healthy interactions. So boundaries help to create healthy interactions by defining what behaviors are acceptable, as well as reducing misunderstandings and conflicts that will absolutely occur. Another thing, or another reason why we need boundaries is for personal growth, right? They allow individuals to grow and maintain their identities within the relationship. So, personal growth. And then the fifth thing as to why we need boundaries in our life is for stress reduction. How many of you need this particular one? Stress reduction. Stress is the silent killer. It really can kill off a lot of us and send us to the hospital and away from all of the things that we needed to face anyway. So, stress reduction is where boundaries come into place. So, boundaries can reduce stress by preventing situations where one person, you, feel overwhelmed or taken for granted. Now, I literally had to establish a boundary in a friendship recently. And it wasn't easy. Boundary setting is never really easy, especially with the people that you care about. So in my case, it was a friend, but this absolutely has happened with a significant other as well. But you have to do it because if you don't say something when you feel that the person is overstepping or you feel uncomfortable saying yes to a request, but you go along with it, you're the one where the stress happens to. It's not the other person. So again, you have to have boundaries in order to reduce your stress levels. So me and my friend, we were having a conversation about a boundary that I personally set. And the person was having a hard time, honestly, accepting my boundary. And I understand that. And you have to understand it. Why do I understand it? I understand because just because I set a boundary does not mean the other person is going to be happy with the boundary that I set. However, I have to be truthful, I have to be honest, and I have to be willing to allow others to feel uncomfortable slash upset with me and not me worry about handling their feelings. Now, this may sound a little insensitive, but it's actually not. Because at the end of the day, each of us have to take care of ourselves, of our mental health, of our physical being. The truth of the matter is, and this is people in general, not just my friend, but just people in general. People don't really care about your situation unless you make them care about your situation. And so when me and my friend were having this conversation and they were not really happy with the boundary that I was setting, I literally had to say, "Hey, I understand. You don't have to like my boundary, but this is it. This is my limit. This is where I'm willing to go. And if it doesn't work for you, I get it. It's my boundary. It doesn't have to work for you, but my boundary works for me." And you have to understand that for yourself because you are the most important person in your life, and nobody's going to respect your boundary more than you will. If people are able to push the limit with you, they will push the limit with you. And it's not because we're such horrible people, but if I can get all that I can get, then why not get it? If you're going to allow me to just take from you, and because most of us don't verbally say, hey, I'm exhausted. I see that you're taking a lot. You're not giving much, but I see that you're taking a lot. Most of us don't verbalize that, whether we witness it or not, or realize it or not, or even accept it or not. The point is, you have to be willing to allow others to be upset about you and your boundary and not care about it. And that's literally where I'm at. Not being mean, not being rude. I'm not even trying to make the other person upset. What I am trying to do is make sure that I'm taken care of in this situation. So I had to literally say, listen, in this season of my life, I'm being very selfish for me because I am the only person that I can take care of, me and my household. And so if I'm able to help you or whatever the request is, then I will do it. But it's not because you just want me to. I have to want to do it, number one, and then my resources have to be have to allow me to participate in that way. And so I don't worry about other people's feelings getting hurt. I'm worried about my own feelings getting hurt. I don't worry about if um, it's financially stressful for the other person, but I do worry about if it's financially stressful for me. I don't really worry about if it's physically straining for the other person, but I do worry about it for me. So you do have to be selfish about your boundaries and honestly understanding that this is not always going to make everybody happy in your life, but you have to be okay with that. And me, where I'm at, I'm okay with that. And here's the thing. The one thing about setting boundaries, you will truly see the real person show up. And I mean the person that you are setting the boundary with. The real person will come out. And sometimes you will see them rear their ugly head. And most of the time, it's not very becoming because what ends up happening is the little girl or the little boy that is deep down inside each of us comes out. And those hitting below the belt statements come out. And what we remember with the people that we truly want to hang out with time and time again is that they make you feel good when you're in their presence. And so if you are finding yourself having to set boundaries with a person and they don't accept them, and then their little boy or little girl starts to surface, it's because they have yet or stopped working on getting that little boy and that little girl into a place of acceptance and allowing them to be able to voice what it is they need to voice based off of what was shut down or told them not to show up as a child. Now, that's deeper than I want to go, but I do want to share with you that a lot of times it is because people have not tapped into or have forgiven the childhood trauma that happened to them. So they revert back to the child where the trauma took place. Again, too deep, but that is what's actually happening. You can look it up or talk to your therapist about it, right? So, boundaries. That is why we need boundaries in our relationship. And so now let's move on to when we must establish these boundaries in our relationship. The best case scenario is early in the relationship. I find that so many people try to establish boundaries too late. And too late is kind of it's relative because it's better to try to establish them whenever you feel that you need to versus never. But the best case scenario is early on in the relationship because when you do this, it helps to set the tone for mutual respect and understanding, setting the tone for the way that the both of you are going to be able to converse with one another, right? Setting the tone that, hey, I'm not just willing to accept anything just because you are a part of my life. Here's my boundary. I understand if it doesn't work for you. This is my boundary. I get it. So that's when you should ideally set it as early on in the relationship. But then also there are other times that you should set boundaries as well, which is as need changes within the relationship. So boundaries should be reassessed and communicate it as needs and circumstances change within the relationship. So when needs change, it's time to have a conversation. It's time to set more boundaries. It's time to enforce the boundaries that you have set. It's time to hey, I see that we did have this conversation. You said that you were willing to do X, Y, and Z. I'm noticing that you are doing A, B, and C versus X, Y, and Z. So let's reevaluate. Maybe that boundary that we discussed is not working for you, and then reassess the situation. But as your needs change within the relationship, it's now time to have a conversation. And that's exactly where I'm at with the friend that I told you about a few moments ago, because the needs for the relationship have now shifted and changed. And now it's time for me to establish boundaries, because the way that I was able to show up before, I'm no longer able to show up like that. I'm in a different season than the season that the person met me in. And so I had to be able to share that. And again, it wasn't received well in the beginning, but I still stuck to my boundaries because it's mine. And the truth of the matter is, the other person has the opportunity to say, you know what, pick your boundaries. I'm moving on with life. Or, okay, I get it. No problem. Yeah, I still want to do whatever with you, hang out with you, whatever. I'm willing to accept said boundary. But if they don't, it's okay too. Like literally, it's really okay. And you have to come to terms with, some people are not going to accept your boundary and they are going to leave your life. That's just a part of this thing that we call life. And then understanding that everybody's not meant to go the entirety of your life with you. Some people are there just fleeting. It's like it was great, but they was only around for a few weeks or a few months. And then there are some people that are seasonal, right? And they still have to go because they're seasonal. And then we have the people that most of us want or even long to have, which are the long-term friends and significant others that go the distance and the journey with you. And there will be some people in your life like that. Just know that it's not going to be everybody. And some people that you can see today in your life long term may not make it. And that's okay, because times change, things shift. We have the unexpected in our lives that happens all the time. And you have to be willing to roll with the punches. And if you're not, it's going to catch you off guard. And the toxicity that's within you is going to boil up and over and out into all of your relationships. And it's not going to be a pretty sight, because you're going to end up losing a lot of people. Or you may have a friend or even a significant other that's doing that. And you're like, nah, this ain't for me anymore. So it works both ways. You have the decision to make by upholding other people's boundaries, and then people have the decision to make with you about upholding your own boundaries as well. Now, before we move forward, I really would love to tell you about my 3S challenge, because it is really not only helping you to think about things on a deeper level like this, it really is about getting to know who you are on a deeper level. And so my 3S challenge it's several weeks, and we come together weekly, and it really is the benefit of a small group of Black women coming together and being able to show up in their femininity, as well as ask questions and not feel like they are the person or the friend that's always saving everybody. They are the person that's able to come there and receive what they need to. So in that moment, they don't have to show up as the strong friend. They can show up just as themselves and be able to receive and get poured into and loved on in that moment. Because as you know, if you're the strong friend, you know that the strong friend is literally, everybody looks to you as the strong friend. And most people don't check on the strong friend. I don't think that they necessarily do this on purpose, but we know as a strong friend, we know that most people don't check up on you. You find yourself checking up on everybody else. But when it's your turn, you hardly get anybody to check up on you or to really ask you what's going on with you. You're the one that's usually fire hosing everybody else's life and, quite frankly, their drama. But this 3S challenge gives you a chance to let down your guard, let down your hair, and be able to speak about the things that you truly need to speak about, because you can't as a strong friend. You don't have a group or a safe space to come and do that for yourself. So that is what the 3S challenge is. It is also a place for you to speak softer to yourself, speak kinder to yourself. And a lot of times we have trouble doing that. We have trouble speaking kinder to ourselves when nobody else is around, right? We can put up a front, we can wear the mask when others are around us for a period of time, but needing a safe space to relinquish that mask and just to be you and come and say what you need to say and allow things to just flow out of your mouth that you probably wouldn't say to your closest friends or family just because they probably wouldn't understand you in that way. This is what the 3S challenge is all about. We are working on your self confidence. We're working on your self esteem and specifically speaking softer to yourself. And so, if you need help with creating boundaries and creating slash enforcing them, we can help you with that as well. A lot of people are on different journeys in their life. And so I talk about all of the actions that are needed to take in order for your self confidence to increase, for your self esteem to get boosted, and for you to be able to speak softer to yourself by giving yourself some grace and mercy. So, if this sounds like something that you want to be a part of and you're a Black woman, then absolutely there is a link. I want you to go ahead and press the link. What's going to happen when you press the link is that you will be placed on a waiting list. So the next time I have my 3S challenge, I will personally reach out to you in order to get you signed up. But that can only happen if you press the link. And then that is when I will be able to give you a call or send you a text message to see if you are available for my upcoming challenge. Now, let's get back to establishing boundaries. Now, we were on why should we establish boundaries in our relationship? And the third part of that is when issues arise. So let me back up. The first part is the best way to establish them is early on in the relationship. The second part is as needs change within the relationship. And then the final part is when issues arise, which is like I said. So when issues arise, it is if conflicts or discomforts arise, it's crucial to discuss and establish these new boundaries to address these issues. So, say for instance, you and your significant other have been arguing over um, the children. Maybe you have a new addition to your family, and both of you are in high power positions slash careers, and now you're trying to figure out who's either going to um, you're trying to make a decision of who's going to take care of the child. It might be one of you. It might be both of you. One of you just goes to work, the other one stays with the child. It could be both of you where you have split shifts. One goes to work while the other one is watching the child. And then when that one comes home, now you go to work and the other one watches the child. So it could be split shifts, but it could be neither one of you want to do it. Not that you don't love your child. It's just child rearing is not your area. And so maybe you want to have a nanny or send the child to daycare. So now it's time to make a decision about childcare. But it's also the boundaries of that, of coming up with what's the limit? Like, I need a break. So what's the break time looks like? What does that also look like as far as date nights for the two of you? And so it's really coming at what like hard boundaries of, okay, I need for us to both establish the time that each of us are going to be home in order to split the shift if that's what you decide to do. So it's really establishing boundaries as needed or as they arise in your relationship. Obviously, that's a baby example, but it really could be anything that is getting ready to surface or that has surfaced a time or 15. Okay. Okay. So now, how often should you set said boundaries? How often? So, boundaries, just understanding that you have to continuously revisit boundaries. They are not a one time thing. And so, revisiting them regularly is going to help both of you to feel like, okay, I think that we got a handle on this. And so, regular check ins, periodically reviewing boundaries ensures that they remain relevant and effective. Major life changes. So whenever there are significant changes in life circumstances, like moving in together, having children, career changes, it's a good time to reassess and possibly reset boundaries, as I mentioned before. And then, of course, conflict resolution. So after resolving the conflicts, it may be necessary to reset or to adjust boundaries in order to prevent similar issues in the future. Now, I know that we're getting ready to wrap up this 30 minutes, but I do want to share with you some examples of boundaries to establish within your relationship with your partner. So I won't go deep into this, but you can look up each one of this. So the first one is emotional boundaries, right? Being able to respect each other's feelings, allowing space for emotional expression without judgment or criticism. The second one is physical boundaries within the relationship, respecting the personal space and the physical touch preferences of one another. And then there's time boundaries, managing time together as well as time apart in order to and maintain balance and personal interests outside of one another. Then there is also sexual boundaries, communicating about your sexual preferences, consent, and your comfort levels. Then there's also intellectual boundaries, respecting each other's viewpoints and opinions. Very, very big. Which leads me to financial boundaries within the relationship, which is managing money, the spending of money, and the financial responsibilities together as well as separately. So, what does that look like? And then this is the newest one, which is the digital boundary. Digital boundaries, which is respecting privacy and managing digital communication. What does that look like in your relationship? And so, what I would like for you to focus on is, understanding what boundaries are, when to use them, when can you apply setting boundaries in your own relationship, and have you established boundaries in your relationship, or have you faulted or faltered on this particular area in your relationship, and you are noticing that things are not as great as they could be because you have yet to establish or yet to enforce said boundary. You already know who you are, and you're starting to work on deepening that. Today, we talked about boundaries and what that looks like. The final piece of this that we're going to discuss next week is communication. And I know we talk about communication all the time, but it is that important because a lot of people get communication wrong, which is why we need to discuss it. So, with that being said, thank you so much for taking these 30 minutes out of your day, out of your night, out of your morning, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this. I am your favorite host, Marshaun Olaniyan. This is Love Restored, and you're listening to KCCR Brownstone Cityscapes Radio. I love you guys, and there's nothing that you can do about it. If you want coaching outside of Love Restored, look at my email, Marshaun at Marshaun Olaniyan. Reach out to me and let me know that you are interested in coaching. I will see you guys next week where we discuss communication.